Alright, what's going on guys? It's Almond and welcome back to a Wiz video. Obviously, no intro this time around because whenever there is no intro this time around, it's definitely I guess, serious video so I can be one-on-one with everybody when I'm talking about a video like this especially. But we're going to be talking about the roundtable that just happened like what, 2-3 days ago at this point. And I wanted to give my own opinions. I feel like I did kind of talk about my opinions on stream, of course, but I had a lot of takes and there were people who were agreeing with me and there were some people that were disagreeing with me. But I basically want to give you guys my rundown based upon me watching the whole roundtable. I even went back into the video and write down a bunch of points that kind of was concerned about because they really strayed away from the topic, but at the same time is that it wasn't really a roundtable. It kind of was disorganized and stuff like that, which I mean we'll talk about in the video of course as well. So how I'm going to divide up this video is there's going to be cons. We're going to be talking about those first, of like things I don't disagree with or things I disagree with about what they were talking about, and then some pros, which honestly there are some pros. It's not like I heavily disagree with everything that they had on the roundtable. There were some things I was like, okay, this is reasonable, but it really just strayed away from the main topic that I was trying to get at from this roundtable. Of course, we'll also be talking about some things, whether it be like people posting videos about me, of course, and bring up points that honestly were completely invalid. But honestly, hey, fair enough. Everyone has their own POV on the whole roundtable and stuff like that. And there were some content creators that just don't want to interact with me anymore based upon of how I reacted to the stream, which is fair play to them. I don't mind. Right, everyone's entitled to their own opinion. I felt like everyone was just agreeing non-stop in the whole call. There was no counter argument, right? I feel like in a round table, it's not just everyone gassing each other up saying yes, that is true. Well, have some counter arguments, have some actual reasoning behind it, and show to me that's an actual round table. So there's that, and I'll talk about what I do as a content creator, because I feel like people think that I kind of just sit and do nothing as a content creator, but I still want to get my point across. So there'll be a lot of different points in this video, so hopefully you guys enjoyed the whole thing, and hopefully I can get my point across to all of you guys before people start yapping for no reason. There was a lot of yippee yapping everywhere, so of course I gotta put my foot down and actually talk about it. So let's talk about the cons, right? This is no in particular order of how they, how the video is structured. It's just that the way I listed everything down. So there's some cons. Do these content creators actually understand what a casual player is? I felt like, to me, while watching it, the whole topic to me was that, hey, for casual players, the game is unplayable or it's too difficult, whatever, right? So I wanted to ask, do they really understand what a casual player is, right? What defines a casual player in Wizard101? Does a casual player do PvP? Do they chase min-max stats? Do they do advanced content or raids? How many hours does a casual player actually play on Wizard101? Would a casual player go out their way to make pets and have a 69 plot right off the rip? Would they go out and farm spell elements with gold keys? Would they do all those types of things? Most casual players would not do this. And if you do these things, are you really a casual player? There are people who are casual players that did do raids, but all they did was just play Drum Simulator 24/7 in the Void raid. Those casual players do not touch the Azteca raid, of course, because it's out of their league. Now, the roundtable strayed away more and more from the casual and ventured into endgame / advanced content, which to me, I mean, like, hey, you can bring up those things, but from an outer's perspective, while watching the roundtable, it felt like the topic was casual players, and it did not really promote that in my eyes. It just sounded like a complaint fest of all the issues in the game, which honestly, that's valid, but if you're talking about a main topic at hand, definitely wasn't done properly. So you got to understand what a casual player is in Wiz. Of course, a casual player in Wiz is not going to do all these things I listed. They're going to be doing just the main story. They'll probably hop on maybe like an hour or two a day. They wouldn't really care about gold keys or spells. They would probably be using Bazaar gear, and they might have some gear, but they'll be fine. Like, you can reach min-max caps, like not even the best min-max caps, but you can reach caps just by using Merciless gear, by using Bazaar gear. But they're not really sweating and doing a dungeon 24/7, farming gear and doing all these other things, right? So players need to understand what a casual player is in Wiz. So that's one thing that was a con. Another thing is that challenge mode was being first was a bad idea. Basically how they released Nightmare Dungeon is that the challenge mode came out first before standard. Now, the reason of challenge mode coming out first is because that standard wasn't ready to release due to the bugs. Now imagine if they did release it with all the bugs. It would make you complain about the game more and more and say it's buggy / unplayable. It was planned to be released at the same time, but issues occurred and was not planned for. There were issues with converting challenge mode into standard mode, which led to delaying standard. They couldn't create standard until challenge was designed and modeled fully. How they work on certain dungeons is that they focus on creating challenge mode first, and then they create the standard variation. They lower the cheats based upon that, and they also increase the HP if need to, etc. Right? And I'll toss in a screenshot of Kyle talking about it, right, in the Wiz server. But it's not that like it's in their intention to be like, hey, you know, the whole plan is to release only challenge and that's it. It's just that issues occurred and they didn't want to delay it. So the fact that we even got a dungeon and we're able to access it, still nice. Of course, you know, it did make all the casual players, quote unquote, casual players, be upset, saying like, why would they do this? But at the same time, as people would complain if the dungeon got delayed even more and more. So it's like, you got to understand where the devs are coming from. Of course, I even have my opinions with the devs, right? Of course, there's times where, you know, I do tell them something and they don't, you know, have the same opinion as me, and that's fine, right? But I do voice my opinion to them whenever I get the opportunity to. But still, I think, in my personal opinion, challenge mode Nightmare is perfect, right? It is a good introduction into raids slightly. You know, you have the timer, you know, you have all the stuff that you do, you move around. So I think it was a really good dungeon. I'll probably talk about that in a separate video. But yeah, I don't think it was a bad idea, but I mean, at least still, like, we got the gear, we got the dungeon to come out, and it's better than waiting because people would have been complaining anyways. Then they also did talk about on the roundtable saying that the idea that dual school is being forced. Now, when I heard this, I was kind of confused as hell. The idea of it being forced is completely incorrect. There's no point in the main story where the game forces you to dual school. There has yet to be a fight where you cannot progress because you have to dual school. There's gear that even supports dual school in mid-game, because there was talked about saying that mid-game players do not have access to dual schooling gear. And that's completely invalid, because there is world gear from Chrysalis or Dragonspire that does have dual schooling stats. Of course, you can even do boss rematches. You can do the Nightmare Gauntlet, or the Nightmare Gauntlet, I mean, or the Burrower gear from the Gold Key boss. You can do those options and be able to get gear for like level 50, 60, etc, you know? So the thing is, those exist and there are options for dual schooling, but it's never forced in actual standard gameplay when it comes to the main story. Now, there are pay to win options for dual schooling gear. Of course, there is the Florimancer pack, but it only comes out with Halloween. So that's one thing. And there's also the Great Adventure gear, which is pack only. So out of those options, most of those are free to play. Now, but it's no way forced that you have to dual school. There's an option, you can do it in the game, but it's never forced to. But you also have to keep in mind, a casual player that only hops on for like a certain amount of hours a day and that doesn't like go into advanced combat or anything like that, wouldn't venture into this style of gameplay, because the style of gameplay that does kind of like give you more of an influence is like advanced content, or just straight up the Lore Magus boss fight. The key boss literally incentivizes cosplaying / dual schooling, right? You're playing as another school essentially. So that's when you need like actual like stats for another school. But that is considered like gold keys, you know, that's other content, but a casual player would not do that. So I think just saying the idea of dual schooling is being forced is completely invalid, and it's never been forced in the actual main story when it comes to just doing the quest line, right? Of course, other stuff we can talk about separately, but the actual main story, no, it's never been forced. Another thing that they did bring up is wanting content creator codes like Fortnite, Call of Duty, basically wanting to get paid to promote the game. Now, there was no argument or reasoning behind this. Now, some of the content creators are in extra credits program, including myself, right? You basically receive a reward for uploading a type of content per month. Now, you don't have to take the objective literal, right? I definitely twist it a little bit so it fits my type of content. Now, I think the other people in extra credits don't realize that. And, you know, obviously everyone has their own style of content that they upload, right? Whatever I upload is not going to be whatever someone else uploads, right? Sometimes we might cross paths and, you know, have the same type of video uploaded around the same time, but, you know, have our own different opinions, but that's about it. But when it comes to the objective, I don't take it like straight up literal, right? But yeah, back to what I was saying, you do receive rewards every month for free, right? And on top of that, you do get a special badge to be recognized that you are in the program. Like if you see those green badges, I was gonna make a video about it, but you know, a lot of videos just get backed up with everything that's been happening in my life recently. But yeah, they do give us a badge on one of our characters that says professor's assistant, and you're glowing a different color than everyone else, right? So that's like another perk from extra credits. And then the community managers even give us codes, like they give us membership codes, crowns, bundles, packs to give out to the community, right? Which they don't even have to. The fact that they're nice about it and are willing to provide you with this type of stuff is just nice, right? Not all games do something like this. If we want to go off topic and compare it to other games like Overwatch, which was brought up a lot in the stream, same thing as Genshin, that's why I'm kind of correlating it to that, is that games like Overwatch won't even give you anything for just making videos on the game. At least Wizard101 is going the extra mile to at least try, which people do need to understand that some of the devs do try their best, right? I think it's not the devs don't listen, it's that there are players who also don't listen or even reach out to the devs. Like for example, Dbop did ask some questions to the devs and they were kind of nice to him, you know, they like helped them out, whatever, right? And etc. Other people in the community do tend to ask the devs questions, but there actually has to be like an actual valid question. You can't just be like, when's the update, you know, like don't announce that type of stuff. But like back to the whole topic of like asking for content creator codes, it's kind of just greed, right? I wouldn't mind it, but at the same time, me personally, I don't think I would want that in Wizard101. I think what they do is already plenty enough, and honestly, I didn't even ever ask for this type of stuff, right? The fact that I get a badge and I do get rewards just by uploading a video per month that is required around the same type of style that they want us to, I don't mind doing that type of content. I really don't. And most of this content, you guys don't even realize that it's extra credit whenever I do post it, right? Because there's no way in the video I say that this is an extra credits video or anything like that. It's just that that type of content is already styled around the content that I do on my channel. So that's why it works out. So honestly, this whole content creator code thing, I don't think it's needed. It's really not at all. They also talked about the value of standard mode to match the rewards of challenge mode. Now hear me out. Doing 4 one-turnable fights, meaning let's say I do Crash Bandicoot, I just called Incendiate on standard 4 times. That is actually slower than doing 1 4-turnable fight. Crazy to think about, right? You outpace the standard mode people. You receive more dream water and spellaments, and you get higher percentage of gear pieces. Now, if let's say this was Infect where standard was matching challenge mode. Now, if it was Infect, would you ever do challenge mode? What would be ever the point? It would just be a badge and a gold key to show for it. So I don't think that would just basically ruin their whole type of model that they're trying to go for with challenge mode. Challenge mode would be completely useless, and the people who do, I guess, advanced content would kind of just get battered for it, right? Standard is for those casual players that just want to just do it regularly. Challenge is like that introduction to, like, I guess you can call them 4-person raids, right? Because players have been asking for 4-person raids, or just even like less players. Like initially, I even said this back in the day, I'm like, why don't we get like less players in raids? But we have stuff like this to even just like do that, right? Challenge mode has access to those 4 people doing advanced combat situations. So the fact is that at least we're getting rewarded to doing challenge mode. We're getting more rewards. So it makes sense, right? How the reward model works. They even did a whole stream regarding this. The loot model, everything like that, right? They've made streams talking about this stuff. So it just makes sense, right? So I wouldn't want standard to match challenge mode. And I think that was a really bad take for standard to have the same rewards as challenge mode. No one would do challenge mode at all, right? And I think that's just really bad. Now, this was a big topic that was also talked about, is that the idea to give players crowns by simply completing quests and doing badges, right? Now, it's a sort of weird topic, right? But badges do have rewards now, and they're slowly rolling them out because we get keys. I feel like getting a gold key is equivalent of like opening a pack, right? Depending on where you want to get that. So we don't really know what's planned, but there is a badge audit in the spring, right? Who knows what that badge audit's going to contain? We'll have to wait and see, right? Maybe they might give us rewards for keys, for essentially completing a certain amount of badges or something like that, right? Well, I think Wallaroo does it pretty justified, right? Where if you complete a certain amount of challenge modes, you get a gold key, right? Which they didn't have to implement, right? It's a free gold key. You're basically doing that, right? Also, if gold keys were added to like just getting regular badges, they would have to change the whole gold key system, and gold keys would have to be devalued, because essentially if you're getting gold keys like this super easy, it just wouldn't make sense for the drops to be so good, right? Because then, you know, people would just go on all their characters and just do all the badges, yada yada yada. Now, having every badge to do something is weird, because a lot of badges you just get by regular questing, but the more grindy slash out of each badge, like challenge mode already have rewards, and it makes sense. Even the 500 mob defeat badges could have something, but maybe not a gold key. But I don't see a reason for them to give us a gold key or even crowns for defeating something like 10 mobs that gives us a badge, right? It just definitely doesn't make sense. Arguably, the Waller badges do give us rewards, because after a certain amount of boss completions, you get access to the pity system. That is a reward in itself. But crowns and doing that for just completing quests doesn't make sense. And we have the daily assignments and stuff like that, but I don't think it would make sense for us to do a certain amount of quests, we get crowns or whatever, or something like that. I feel like the gold key system was done properly, where it was like after a certain amount of challenge modes and stuff like that, you get a gold key. And we'll also be talking about gold keys later in this video as well, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, I don't think we should get the idea of crowns for completing a certain badges and stuff like that. And they will also compare this to Genshin, which Genshin is its own separate thing. I feel like I have to bring this up quite a lot. Genshin is completely different than Wiz. I know people want to bring up that comparison, and honestly, I think it's a really bad comparison. I feel like there should be other games that be compared to, but Genshin is that outlier, which I don't think you should compare to. So there's that. They also talked about there's no publicity or advertising for Wiz. Now, there's no proof / logical reasoning for them to say this. KingsIsle has actually sponsored multiple MMO creators, and they advertise it on multiple platforms. They work on MMO articles to promote hype for updates. They go to gaming events. To say that they're not advertising and marketing is just ignorant, right? They do try. If you guys notice, they've been on like what, PAX, I think it's PAX West, if I remember. They do that type of stuff. I believe even some MMO content creators were even sponsored by Wiz. Tectone was like the main one, and that is one content creator I do watch time to time. To seeing him getting sponsored by Wizard101 and even talking about it on his videos was crazy to see. So the fact that to say that they aren't advertising or doing no type of marketing is a very bad take, right? It's just that they do it on their own pace when there's like a big massive update. There's no point of just, you know, saying, oh, tune into Wiz, whatever, to like small creators and stuff like that, you know, to get them like advertised. It just doesn't make sense. I feel like whenever we get like huge update again, they're probably going to do more marketing, because it just makes more sense, right? If they advertise Wiz right now, I mean, they could, but they would just tell people, hey, Waller is here, etc., you know? So there's that. Another bad take was comparing Overwatch to Wizard101. Essentially, they were comparing the loot system, or like the loot box system in Overwatch, which Overwatch doesn't have anymore. Now, Overwatch has its own case where gambling is illegal, and because it wants to go to more markets, they can't have that whole gambling aspect. So because of that fact, the whole loot box system they had to get rid of, which was a marketing tactic. So that's why they got rid of the whole system. Basically, no luck, all skill. Wizard101 is an American-based company, so it's different, and it's bad to compare the two companies. Comparing their whole loot box system to ours is a completely different standard, right? And I don't think it's worth comparing Overwatch in that regard. So that's why I wanted to talk about that and say, hey, I don't think it's worth bringing that up at all, right? Because Overwatch, you're getting skins, while Wiz, you are getting actual gear and, you know, stats and stuff like that. So it's a little bit different, which we'll talk about more packs in this video as well, towards the pros. Another bad take was challenge mode Mount Olympus. Yes, you heard me. Challenge mode Mount Olympus. The whole argument behind this is that wanting to solo a challenge mode variant of Mount Olympus. I wouldn't want to see an update like this, because it's just taking up a slot for something else that could be more important. There are other things that players want to be wanting to see fixed or changed. No one wakes up one day wanting to go back to do challenge mode of Mount Olympus. Plus, they wouldn't want to make a challenge mode of a soloable content. It's meant to be done with a team of 4. It's supposed to be a mini introduction into raids. So that's why challenge mode is meant to be with 4 players. I don't think I would want to see challenge mode meant for 1 player, personally. Also, there would be no incentive to do it other than a badge and a gold key. The reason why most players would even do Mount Olympus is because of how stable of the Ares wand is. The Ares wand for questing is godlike. I think everyone knows this at this point, because it gives 10 universal damage and a power pip at level 30, which most players would go out and get and use that till like level 100 essentially. And it's a guaranteed drop every run. After that, there's no reason to do Mount Olympus unless you really want to chase the level 30 gear. But it's not like it's needed. Now, realistically, this would be a waste of an update for them to do a challenge mode Mount Olympus. I don't think that they understood how challenge mode even works, but that's just to show of like how much do you know about the whole model and everything regarding the whole Wiz system. So keep that in mind. I don't think we want to see a challenge mode Mount Olympus. I think we would enjoy it for one day for content's sake, and that's it. And there goes our challenge mode. Another take was releasing more dungeons for lower level players. Now, I know some players might like that idea, but let me talk about why it's a con. We do not need a dedicated update for side dungeons for lower level players. There's already gear for wizards who fall into the lower level brackets. You have Come Along Village, which is around level 25. It gives some solid amulet, solid pieces of gear, so it's pretty good. For Mount Olympus, we have level 30. For Dragonspire gear, we have level 50. We have 56 crafted gear for Winter Tusk. We have Waterworks gear and House of Scales for around level 60 players. We have Atlantia for 70. We have Tartarus for 90. We have Azteca and Chrysalis crafting, which is for 80. So 80/90, depending on how you view it. And then we also have the Chrysalis gear, which is level 100. And then we also have Darkmare gear for level 100. So the fact is, for them to introduce a whole new dungeon for just a slot in wouldn't be worth it personally. There's even gauntlets that scale to your level, like the Nightmare Gauntlet. And even there will be a gauntlet in the spring, which would follow the same format of where you can go into different levels of the gauntlet and farm your bracketed gear, which is interesting to see. We also have boss rematches which scale to different level brackets. It wouldn't be worth making a dedicated update and waste resources to make a whole dungeon separately for a lower level bracket. I feel like it's understandable for higher level brackets because at least they won't get, you know, they'll have a use down the line more and more and more. I feel like going back, it's not really that much of a use. I feel like what they're doing with boss rematches and gauntlets, being able to target it, even if you're like level 50 or 60, like you can craft like level 50, 60 Nightmare gear, you know, you can craft all that stuff if you go do the gauntlet. You can go do boss rematches. Of course, they'll lower the tier so it's around your level, and you can farm up the Malicer gear, which is basically the Skyfarer gear via the boss rematches. And eventually we'll have Wastelander gear in there as well. But of course, that depends on how they want to do it, and I'm not too sure on how exactly they want to do the boss rematches at the moment. So still, I don't at the moment I really think there's no need for a release of a lower level dungeon at all, right? And I think there was also talk about them talking about for PvP, but in PvP you're just for level 50 PvP, most players just use the Dragonspire gear, and then on top of that you just farm a Thame ring, whatever, you know. So it's a little bit different, and there's also people who are just scaling down. Since we have the whole scaling down feature, you can play as a max and scale down to a lower level and play as your own school, which a ton of people have been doing that at the moment as well. So there's that. They also brought up the topic saying Beast Moon is pay to win. Now, I don't know how Beast Moon is pay to win, right? Beast Moon is not pay to win at all. The only reason I feel like this was brought up is due to the fact that Lunari was introduced in the Crown Shop at one point. It hasn't been in the Crown Shop due to bug issues, especially at the time I'm recording this. There is no Lunari at the shop. So players in reality do grind a lot of Beast Moon. Not everyone needs tier 5 forms to win. If a person has a tier 5 and you have a tier 1, there's a lot of differences. But the fact is, if I know how to play the form and I know how to counter other forms properly, I can win up the matchups. The reasons players have a lot of tier 5 forms is due to them always playing when the event comes out, so they tend to always grind more and more and more. They also do team ups with their friends, their guild members, of course, and they conquer the content at hand to farm up the resources, whether it be the PvP Beast Moon or the PvE Beast Moon, right? The fact that people have a lot of these forms is because they grind up the event like crazy. I know like 5 or 6 guilds that are constantly always doing Beast Moon because that's something that they enjoy. They love tearing up their forms, right? And the fact that people are saying it's pay to win, not really, right? Before even the whole Lunari was added to the shop ever, it was never pay to win. It was just that who was playing the most, right? Who had the time, essentially. So it just became a PvE grind table. Now, At the same time, all it is just that you farm up the Lunari, farm up the idols, the spellements, the seeds or whatever, and then you basically garden the seeds. And the school specific seeds are targeted for the specific form you want to tier up, right? So there's no way that that's Beast Moon is pay to win. It's not, right? Even if Lunari comes back in the shop, it's not going to be pay to win completely. Because if a person spends up all their money to get a tier 5 form, and let's say the person that has a tier 5 form that didn't spend money, but whoever knows the most knowledge is going to win regardless. You can spend as much money as you want, but if you are playing against a player that is more knowledgeable about the whole Beast Moon stuff, you're going to get outclassed. So regardless, at the moment, Beast Moon is not pay to win, and I think I'm going to stick with that statement moving forward. Another thing that they did talk about is saying that the gold key system is bad and it's very terrible to obtain them. Now, this is very much a hot take, and I really do want to address this as well. Yes, the gold key system was changed a long time ago. I feel like when I watched the clip back, there was someone who barely found out gold keys were being changed. Gold keys were changed for a while back at this point. So casual players are not going to go out their way to use gold keys on bosses, right? I feel like this is another thing. A lot of these things are not even straying towards the topic at hand, which was casual players have it like really bad, right? So the whole system, in my opinion, with the whole gold keys is pretty good, right? I don't mind more options, but I don't think it's needed at all. And we have a whole system to farm up spell elements for our spells is amazing as a whole. At least it's not just pack exclusive. Of course, whenever packs do come out and how, you know, Wiz is always behind like 1 to 3 months, we won't get that as a free-to-play option kind of till later, which I will talk about towards the pros as well. But there was a bad take to say that this is only obtainable via PvP. I think it should have been done properly, saying there is also a lot of ways of getting gold keys, but the fact is that you focused only on PvP to get the gold keys is a really bad take. And I have made a video talking about where to get gold keys. I even have it in the Discord as a whole separate tab that players do look back at, and I even have slides for players to see how to do all the fights. So there's multiple ways of getting gold keys. It's just that the fact is that the players in the call did not assess all of the multiple ways, right? You can get them through all the sources. I'll even just put an image so I don't have to like go through each and individual source. But if not, go watch the video if you really want to farm gold keys. But saying that it's a bad way of obtaining them and the system is bad is really a hot take, and I just don't agree with it at all. So definitely just check out the video or even check the tab in the Discord if you really want to know how to get all the gold keys. So there's that. They also talked about how tournaments don't exist. Now, I don't think they realize that tournaments actually do exist. People are asking what happened with tournaments because you basically killed tournaments. And so they said that tournaments were so good, would you play them without tickets? They said yes. People did tournaments because it was a way to practice PvP without losing rank or getting a bad opponent. The extra bonus was getting tickets. Surprise, surprise, you can still do tournaments at the moment. You just don't get any rewards. Their idea is, no, it's not just for the rewards. I like the tournament. And the question is, why aren't you playing tournaments right now? You can literally go set up a tournament, or you can actually go join a tournament. It's just that players aren't doing it. So the fact is that if players are just doing it for practice, why aren't more players doing the tournaments? You know, if there was no tickets involved and you said that you want to practice your PvP and everything like that, then why aren't you doing tournaments? It kind of didn't logically make sense. Now, tournaments are being revamped later down the line, right? Tournaments as a whole are on the list of things that they want to improve on. Certain things follow a priority. Cam stated that they have plans for it this year, but don't quote him on that. Due to the fact is that things can change based on testing. That's why they don't give a release date of when things are coming out, because things always change. And I think Rapbeard mentioned this in the Discord too, saying how things do get changed, right? If we have a date for everything, then of course if we don't reach that date, players will get mad and everything like that. So that's why they try their best to focus on things. Also, they plan to, if they do implement 2v2s, 3v3s, and 4v4 tournaments, they would have to adjust the Rochambeau to be allowed to use ramps on teammates, like basically converting shields into something, whatever, which has also been addressed on one of Cam's streams. We had the idea of bringing up Ramacroc in challenge mode, and there's an issue where if I have an ally that has a a croc onk on him, and essentially he does a mass trap, it's tough for me to get rid of that trap on my ally, because I can't use a removal 3 on my ally because there's none of those exist. Like, I can't do it on my ally. So you basically get into this loop of in challenge mode where you just can't defeat Ramakroc because he keeps putting a mass trap to cover over his cheat, which is very annoying. So the fact is that the easy way of fixing this is essentially making it so you can use your ramps on your teammates. That's the best fix that they want to do, and that's something that will eventually be added to tournaments as well, and basically 2v2s, 3v3s, and 4v4s even moving forward. So yeah, tournaments should eventually get items once they redo it, but tournaments definitely do exist. So if you wanted to just try it for the gameplay itself, it's an option. So the fact that if players are saying that they do like tournaments, they do miss it, essentially is why aren't you playing it? If the rewards are gone, why aren't you just queuing into tournaments? So keep that in mind as well. There was another topic that I do want to talk about, which is another con, is that unable to get drops for helping low level players. Now, this was a confusing topic to me because I didn't quite understand what they meant by this, and it sounded very bad, right? It makes no sense when they start talking about worlds. If you want to go help out with Crocotopia, go help out with Crocotopia. If you want to go help out with Dragonspire, go help out someone with Dragonspire. You won't get the normal rewards for it, but at the same time, though they even said that they don't care about the low level gear. If you're just trying to help somebody, you shouldn't be seeking rewards personally, right? I know you can even do team up and stuff like that, which people do because there's an incentive because of the badge and the whole shop for doing the team up stuff. But if you're just trying to help players and you're expecting an incentive, but at the same time you're saying you don't want the incentive, it's kind of going backwards, right? It doesn't make sense logically. So I feel like that was a bad take. I did want to mention that. Now, there's one last con that I want to talk about, which was the roundtable was poorly done. I feel like I should have mentioned this at the beginning of the video, but yes, the roundtable was poorly done. I feel like it should have been done more properly. I know that they did state that it was done super last minute, but at that point, they should have just rescheduled it, gathered a bunch of questions and concerns from the community. At the same time, it did feel like a square table, not a round table. The reason why I'm saying this is because there's mainly like 3 or 4 people talking, and there was like a whole VC of them. And it's just people controlling the conversation the entire time during the stream. What they should have done is they should have actually asked each person individually what their thoughts were and how they can change it. Instead of basically saying fix the game, have actual reasoning, facts, and resources to back up your philosophy, right? Because in a regular roundtable that they do for Wizard101, and you basically invite the dev to your stream, right? Sometimes the devs will actually host one, but most of the time it's been, hey, you invite the dev to your stream and you address your concerns and have an actual reasoning behind it, right? There was one past roundtable back when the Azteca raid came out, and it was pretty bad because it wasn't done properly and it wasn't valid questions with valid concerns with valid philosophy behind it. So I know it was done last minute, which I did find out afterwards, right? After I talked to some people that were in the stream and that were part of that whole stream, I did talk to them individually. And I mean, at the same time, no one like hates my guts or anything like that. No one's like wants me dead or something like that. There were like 3 or 4 people who were like, well, you should have been in the stream, you should have been that, which I do understand, right? But it's just that it was kind of poorly done. It really was poorly done. So there's that. At least I got some opinions across. I did talk to some of them, so there's that. Now, there isn't just only cons, right? I feel like I talked only about cons, of course, because how I'm separating this video. Now, there was some pros, but the thing is with the cons is that, and the pros, is that it's strayed away from the topic of, I feel like, what was at hand, which was casual players. All these things that I'm bringing up, casual players would not do. This just feels like a roundtable of just talking about the overall game versus targeting casual players. Because all these things I talked about, like, casual player would not be doing that. So the reason why there are some pros is because there are some things that should be changed in the game, and I will agree with that. But of course, this does affect advanced combat players as well, or even just players that are more than casual, that actually play the game and farm gear. So there's that. Let's talk about the pros. They brought up the idea of resetting Spellament training points for gold. That's a good reason, right? And making it so that you can reset Spellaments to cost gold. Now, for the Spellament thing, Ratbeard agreed the other day by saying that Spellament reset doesn't generate much money, so he wouldn't be opposed to removing it now. That would be like rank 7 spell elements would become a thing, but ideally you'd like to see if you could just upgrade both paths at the same time, which honestly that's a good philosophy from Rapbeard. But due to the fact of where the game is heading, especially when there's Arc 2 spell elements around the corner, there'll be so many spells that there'll be more paths, and if I wanted to switch spells for the type of combat I'm tackling, it would give me an option to without having to spend crowns every time. Right, I know a casual player isn't going to be like farming up spell elements and stuff like that, but this is still good for the future of Wiz. I have nothing to disagree about it. I think that was a solid point, especially once Arc 2 spell elements come out. I think it's kind of needed at that point because there's going to be so many spell elements in the game for different spells. I think it's just really nice to have, especially if you are a membership player. I think what they should do is, if you have membership, just make it a permanent effect where if you have membership, you can reset your training points at any time with gold, and you should reset your spell paths at any time with gold. That would be an awesome option for them to do. I know we have the weekend benefits, but instead this should just be a permanent thing, personally. Now, they did bring up the Nightmare Dungeon. There is a little bit of pros and cons about this, but they did say the Nightmare Dungeon is hard. Now, to me, I'm gonna say the Nightmare Dungeon is really not that hard, right? If we're talking about the actual combat for standard, right, it's not hard. I think I even made a whole long guide. There's other people that have been making guides. It's legit just feint stack, and players think that that is very, very difficult. Now, to me, I don't understand the logic behind that, but the point that they did bring up that I will agree with, that is a pro, is talking about the broken dreams. Now, depending on where you're from, you can have some latency issues, and the broken dreams can literally just scrap you and you get sent all the way to the spawn. Now, I do understand that, and I 100% agree with that. But the thing is, though, with the latency stuff, they have it on the lowest possible thing that they can do specifically for that area, from what I understand. But if we're just talking about the overall dungeon, it's not hard. I know they brought up the maze a lot in the stream, but the maze isn't the issue. I think they should have clarified that it's the broken dreams. The maze itself is honestly fine. It gives you a different experience every time. But talking about the maze as a whole, I think that's a bad take. Talk about the broken dreams. So if they were talking about it a little bit more, but I knew kind of what they were talking about. But the broken dreams, yes, that is an issue, especially from where you're from. If you're like EU, etc., stuff like that, I do hear people complain, and honestly, I do agree with that. Now, after that, after the whole stream as well, there were patch notes that were posted like a day or two after the whole roundtable stream, and a lot of the content creators assumed that it was influenced by their roundtable, but I have to let them know that that is incorrect. It wasn't influenced by the roundtable at all, right? Maybe they just posted the patch notes ahead of time so players don't get misinformed, but there were patch notes already planned, and there were already a patch that they were working on. These notes were planned for such a long time, but it's just that the content creators assumed it was due to the roundtable. Changes have been in the works ever since players have been giving feedback since the release of Nightmare, and of course Standard. It's been talked about on multiple streams, whether it be Cam's stream or Rapbeard streams. Most players knew what changes are coming to Standard, plus they would not release a patch on the weekend. It's usually Monday to Thursday. So I think the only thing that they did influence was posting the patch notes ahead of time so players don't get misinformed, because there was a patch that was being worked on to adjust standard mode, and Spark has talked about this before in the server where they wanted to see feedback, and of course I gave my feedback too, and you know, hopefully things were getting fixed. And of course we do have the patch notes as well, which I will post on screen, of course. And yes, it wasn't influenced anyway because of the content creator stream. A lot of the stuff was already planned. It's just that they post the patch notes ahead of time, that's all. So players don't get misinformed. Regenerate and 4-pip spells and all the other spells are being locked behind Beast Moon. Now, that is a pro from the stream. They could toss them in boss rematches, so for Arc 1 they would have more of a reason to do them. The golems, honestly, they could stay in Beast Moon, but I wouldn't mind them moving them out and putting them in other spells, like other places, right? Spellments within Beast Moon are specifically to fill up the queue according to Cam. Artie still isn't happy that Spellments are a Beast Moon exclusive, and he said he'll love to have them moved into other events as well, or into no event at all. Beast Moon is supposed to be a self-contained cosmetic only place. So this was already talked about, but they did bring it up on the stream. It's just that some players don't know about what the devs usually talk about, or like they even post or anything like that. So this has been talked about before, and they really just want to make Beastman a self-contained cosmetic only. It's just give it time, things will change, and who knows, we'll have it in different spots, whether it be boss rematches, whether it be just world spell elements, or just toss somewhere else. They could definitely toss them in multiple spots. It just comes down to what they want to follow via their model. But I think this was a pro to talk about, but like I said, it's been talked about before in previous streams, so there's that. Leaking Rochambeau and advanced content into standard mode. Now, they did bring up the Aeon of Atava stuff, so to fix this, all you would do is move all the difficulty cheats into a challenge mode variant. Right now, casuals are literally fleeing and coming back after spamming cards or waiting for 20 rounds after the polymorph is changed, stuff like that. So if they were to change it, just make it like all of Heroes, it would just make the fight thing AoE, 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 AoE. But issues arise where it doesn't follow the loot model. The drops will be so bad. The rewards would be equivalent of fighting Don Manzana in Novus, aka you get 1 pixel per run. They actually did reduce the drop rates of Atavis when they made it polymorph after 1 boss. They did reduce it again by a significant amount because the fight's expected solo, assuming no cheats at all. It's now maybe 10 minutes rather than 30 minutes. So I think the only fight that I can think of right now that's like quote unquote Rochambeau is just Aeon of Atavis, which a lot of players bring that up. I might be mispronouncing that, but you guys know what I'm talking about. Basically the final boss of Novus, and that's where people get introduced into advanced combat right off the rip, right? So what they could do is they could just definitely fix that fight. I know a lot of players have voiced their concern about this, and if they do concern about it a lot and they want to keep, you know, standard to be more of a casual play without having to venture into these ×2 stuff like that, you know, they could definitely change it, right? I think that is, there's no con to this in my opinion, but I could see them like changing that. And the whole point of that fight was for Cam to make it so it's more of like an introduction to Rochambeau. But over time, seeing how players voice their opinion, they could definitely just change it to basically like Hall of Heroes, or just remove the polymorphs entirely. Just make it so standard has for example, no polymorphs, but they would have to make challenge mode polymorphs. So you wouldn't be getting rid of the fight completely. It's just that challenge mode would have, of course, its polymorph situation. So it just comes down to what they want to do, and depending on what their focus is on, honestly, it's really not that bad of an idea. It's just that drops will be kind of bad, and depending on how you view it, it's either good or bad. You know, would you rather have the fight easier but drops less? But then it's the same concept as the Nightmare Dungeon, you know. So that's another thing to consider. Another thing that was a pro that they did talk about is a Diego tutorial for Arc Mastery and Rochambeau. Honestly, it's not a bad idea. This will help players understand what certain things mean on cards. Not everyone knows what 2x Gambit means or what ramps do. Plus, if players do eventually understand the mechanics of ramps, gambits, pivots, finishers, this will make them want to do PvP or advanced combat / raids and all the other stuff in challenge mode, you know. But for the Rochambeau tutorial thing, Ratbeard did say that the reason no tutorial exists yet is because Rochambeau is still experimental. They make changes to it every update, so a tutorial would quickly go outdated. So still no excuse for a basic one, but that's the basic dev reasoning behind it. I mean, they could make it, it just really comes down to how the devs want to do it, but there is some ways that you can make it so there is a tutorial, because if players do want to venture into that slowly but surely, I think they should be introduced. I think Arc Mastery they could definitely introduce, but Rochambeau, if they want to wait on, they can definitely wait on, but definitely I'd say make a Diego tutorial for Arc Mastery as a whole. So definitely a pro, and there's nothing bad about this at all. Another pro was that packs are pay to win. Now, hold your horses. The reason why I'm agreeing with this is because it's pay to win for PvP. Now, you guys know me, I don't really do PvP. So that's why I'm agreeing with this. The fact is that if you're trying to play the meta and go for rank, you must have the best of the best. The free play option doesn't come out for like 1 to 3 months. We have Wastelander at the moment, and there is certain setups that use Wastelander, basically Skyfarer, and we won't get that till spring update. Right, spring update is when we'll get a free-to-play option, which would be Wastelander. So till then, the people who pay for packs and, you know, open the Wastelander pack have a kind of advantage right now in PvP. So that's why it's kind of bothering a lot of players. But at the same time, is we barely have any templates for 170. So I think once we get more templates for 170, Wastelander is eventually just going to be power crept or just not needed, because depending on the setups. But that's down the line. So still, right now, Wastelander is a pack and we don't have free-to-play option, so it's going to be meta in PvP. If they release them in a way that they can come out with a free-to-play option and a pay-to-win option, players can choose based upon what they want to do. So if they did something like that, they could definitely release like a, for example, like a gauntlet, and also release it as a pack as well, and players can either choose to farm the gauntlet, or they can either open the pack right off the rip instead of waiting on a 1 to 3 month rotation. They can just do it right on the same update, you know. At the same time, we do got to keep in mind is that casual players will not be chasing min-max stats, so this only really affects PvP players. Now, if we're talking about the stitches and the cosmetics, yes, they could make a system where it comes towards like pack pity. Now, they did talk about packs not having a pity system. There should be some incentive for players that open a bunch of packs. They'll be able to trade in a reagent or something like that to pick a specific item from the pack, so that players don't fall into what Artie calls it, the probabilistic void. Especially because packs now have school-specific gear and all the accessories, so keep that in mind. Basically, they can make it so you can just target a specific gear or mount after a certain amount of packs. So there could be like a system on your screen where you just pick and choose. You're like, hey, after like a certain amount of packs, I need this hat, right? Or something like that, where you just get a guaranteed piece or a mount or something like that. Definitely, we can see that happening down the line. Of course, the devs have acknowledged it in the past. It's just that we're just kind of waiting on a response. That's all. But other than what Artie has said, so keep that in mind. Another thing that they did talk about, which is kind of like a pro, is that certain worlds being completely free, basically finishing all of Wizard City and Croc should just be permanently free. Now, the paywall expansion is always being looked into during the trials, what that they run, of course. If it made financial sense, they'd do it. It's not about how many players are playing during the event, it's about how many players buy a member and continue playing after the event. I believe Wizard City and Croc makes sense because it gives you enough of a reason to continue and see the story through. But if the entire Arc 1 was free, it's kind of like a bad take, because the fact that if you have to play an entire arc for free to understand if you want to play the game for another 3 or 4 arcs, I don't understand where a player would actually do that, you know? Like, what's the reason behind that? Like, if you have to take a whole arc, I don't think that's really worth it. I can see where they're coming from, like as a player, I really do, but from a marketing POV, it doesn't make sense. So that's why they do these trials where you can see different metrics from players. Also, they aren't releasing another arc till next year. At the end of the year, we're getting side content. So we have to keep that in mind when it comes to talking about worlds and stuff like that. But I definitely think Wizard City and Croc definitely should be a permanent thing, but I don't know about the whole arc. I feel like depending on what the metrics are, the devs know more about it. And based upon what they see, honestly, I don't mind seeing what they agree upon, you know? But honestly, I think that's just my pro. I do agree with the players, but not the whole arc, but I'd say I agree with Wizard City and Croc personally. And then the last pro that I will agree with regarding the whole stream is that Arc Mastery needs to be reworked. Now, hear me out. Arc Mastery has been discussed for a while within the devs, right? All the devs agree it's not super good for PvE, but they still need to figure out what needs to be changed to it and getting their programmers to do it. Though realistically, school pips aren't used in most fights. It's an inconvenience to mostly death and life people who are using it for the Waller AoEs in team up scenarios, of course. So this is something that's been talked about and they've been looked into on their side of things. So they could just make it, personally, they just make it to where it competes against the enemies and not your allies. But it comes down to how the devs want the system to be changed, because obviously they don't want it to work too well to the point where Arc Mastery isn't really like an actual stat to go for. They want to like change it up to see if it's actually worth doing, and you know, depending on their side of things, of course. Also in the stream, they talked about how it was tossed around that lower level players do not have access to easy Arc Mastery jewels, which is incorrect. There is a vendor that is in the shopping district, which is the jewel vendor, and he literally gives you Arc Mastery jewels for free. And then the argument after that was, well, I have to waste crowns to unlock the socket and stuff like that. But that isn't true. There are sockets that are on gear that is literally already unsocketed, right? And if you're doing it for like low levels and stuff like that, most of your sockets are already unsocketed, right? There are some gear pieces where you could argue that you do need it, but you can always just rock 1 or 2 pieces that give you an Arc Mastery stat. So, and plus another thing to consider is not all low level players are going to be using Arc Mastery. None of the spells that they get from their school give an Arc Mastery pip required on them. Of course, if we're talking about lore spells and, you know, other things like Reindeer Knight and all these other spells that you can use, yes, but an average Wiz player would not do that as a low level. Like the casual player, I mean, the casual player would not be doing those things. So saying that it's inaccessible is incorrect, because yes, you can, you know, get the jewel, socket it on gear, and you don't have to use crowns because some of the sockets are already don't have a socket on them. So keep that in mind. Now, that's basically everything when it comes to the pros and cons. I know there's a lot of cons versus pros, but that's just how I viewed the stream personally, and I had my own takes regarding it. Now, I do want to talk about some other things that were taken out of context by some members in the community, and obviously I didn't get any hate for these things, but I still want to talk about it because it's brain dead logic, in my opinion. So, there was an image floating around of my reaction in Speedster's chat. Now, people love taking things out of context in the community. You say one thing and people will twist your words for it. Regarding the whole thing I said in Speedster's chat, obviously, if you guys know when I'm in Speedster's chat, I troll around with Speedster. I've literally known the guy for 2 years, and he obviously knows when I troll, right? Plus, another thing is, we literally did talk about the other day regarding the whole roundtable. So I did get to see his takes as well, just in a one-on-one conversation with 2 other creators. Also, as a side note, Speedster's literally the first content creator I met in this community. So the fact is that there is a content creator that is a Wiz Reddit mod, and he's trying to start drama, is funny to me. They should probably stick to just being a Reddit mod, because they did delete my post regarding World's First, and it's funny to see that. So trying to start fake drama is not worth it, and definitely stick to being a Reddit mod if I were to say so. And you know who I'm talking about. Another thing I do want to talk about is my reaction to the roundtable, because I did stream it, right? I did stream it. People said I was being toxic regarding the roundtable for having my own opinions. I was being more realistic about how the updates are and what the game prioritizes things. At the same time, people were coming to my chat who have never watched me before and don't understand my type of content. So they wouldn't completely get it, and they would take it the wrong way, which is fine. Everyone's entitled to their own opinions. Another thing is that players thought I was rude for not agreeing with some of the statements that they said in the roundtable. But of course, everyone has their own takes regarding the game as a whole. Plus, there are a lot of things that were said on the stream that weren't backed up or proven or had a lack of information. Saying devs aren't doing certain things when literally they've been on the back end tweaking fights and mechanics, literally nonstop. Now, Cam is a good example. He's always 24/7 busy now, because the fact is he's even canceling his own streams to work on the game. That's how much of an overload that man's on. So keep that in mind. Like, do try, and they actually try their best. But yeah, just that's why I was kind of like defending the devs in some sort of scenarios. Yes, there are some takes that I did agree with, right? I'm not gonna just be like, okay, well, the devs are completely bad. No, it's just, you have to reach out to them and actually talk to them and stuff like that. And it's good that I'm able to do that. Not every content creator reaches out to other, like, you know, what type of content they want to talk about. You know, some PvPers reach out to Ratbeard. You know, when it comes to PvE, I'll like message Cam, I'll message Stormbringer about certain things, you know. Of course, I can message the other people who work on PvE, but I'm just very acquainted towards messaging Cam or Stormbringer. So there's that. Also, I do want to talk about another thing that was tossed around in another content creator's video, is that deleting comments. Now, I don't see what the issue is personally with deleting comments. If it's irrelevant, there's no point of having it there. Plus, there's always a lot of out-of-pocket things people say, and I'd rather not have them just sitting there in my comment section just yapping. At the end of the day, it is my channel. So if you want to disagree, that's fine. Don't watch me. Simple, of course. So everyone has their own takes. Now we got those 3 things out the way, alongside the pros and cons. Now I do want to talk about what I do as a content creator for this community. Now I feel like people are going to take me out of context and say, oh man, you don't do anything for this community, right? Obviously I have done things for this community. I just don't be vocal about it. I don't like be like, okay, self-entitled in a way. Just because I do them is out of my own free will, right? I do guides, of course, on the channel for all these new content that comes out. I try my best to post guides. There's literally so many guides in the Discord, and I spend time and effort working on those for you guys. Now, I generally don't have to do those things. I generally don't. I could just play the game and just quest if I wanted to, or even just farm stuff without having to post content, because making videos is not a job to me. Like, I personally do it for my enjoyment, right? I do have a job that I do on the weekends, and I take care of myself pretty well. So The fact is that people say that I don't do anything is kind of wild, because I literally post guides for you and gear guides, whatever. I talk about the general PvE content, whether it be like advanced combat, whether it be raids, just any type of stuff. I try my best to talk about it, other than PvP. PvP is the one thing I will not venture into, because that's not my style of content. If I genuinely do run out of PvE ideas, who knows, I will eventually do PvP. And I did get to a general census of you guys voting on a poll a while back of should I do PvP, and a lot of you guys do want me to do it. Just at the moment, there's so many things I want to cover in PvE, there's just no reason for me to do PvP at the moment. So there's that. But I do try my best to help you guys as best as I can. I've literally helped people personally if they don't understand any certain combat modes. Also, I do voice my opinion to the devs in DMs privately. I don't personally talk about it on stream or just in videos all the time, because I feel like it's not a need, right? Well, I don't need to gas up me talking to a dev or anything like that, right? Some content creators I know do it. They do message devs, and sometimes people publicly say, hey, I've been messaging this dev over and over, yada, yada, yada. Basically a whole yada of yapping. And I personally don't want to do that. That's just not my style. So if I have certain problems with fight, I talk about my opinions with them in DMs, you know, or I just ask them on the streams. I sometimes ask Cam on his stream about certain problems. Sometimes I'll go to Rapbeard if I am awake. He just streams at like such an early time for me. It's like 6 a.m. I'm not always up at 6 a.m. So obviously time zones and that. So it's kind of hard for me to visit his stream, but I'm usually there for Cam stream as best I can. Just if I have any questions, I'll let him know. If not, I'll be messaging devs and DMs about my concerns, my opinions as well. You know, it's good to see what a dev perspective is on the game. So there's that. So I do go back and forth with devs if I have a concern or if I want to plead my case about something, and I give them logical reasons behind it, right? Sometimes I'll just be joking with them if I'm really cool with them, but of course I do give them logical reasons, and sometimes they won't always agree with me. There's been times where they will disagree and have their own take, which is completely fine. But so the fact that they are reaching out and responding to my DMs or even any of that is a plus, right? But I don't publicize these things because I don't have a reason to. So it's funny that a lot of players think I don't do anything. Like, I voiced my whole opinion regarding the whole Azteca raid in DMs, whether it be a whole video, everything like that. The whole decathlon stuff. Decathlon literally got its leaderboards taken off. Now, of course, I probably was part of that cause, but they're doing it so they can fix the leaderboards, right? And there were cheaters running rampant on the boards, which did ruin the integrity of Decathlon. The fact that they actually heard us out as like a whole community, whether it be like me or the other Decathlon members in the community that have talked about this, have voiced about it, and the fact that it's being heard due to like me helping out, even if it's like a small percentage, is nice to see. So the fact that they're looking into it is amazing, right? So overall, yes, there are pluses and minuses to devs, right? It just comes down to how you want to act towards that dev and how you want to reach out to them. But I don't think it's worth just targeting the devs and saying that they're all bad, because Cam especially is not a bad person. Stormbringer's not a bad person. Rapbeard's not a bad person. Just the whole dev team is not bad as a whole, because some of these dev members have been part of the community. Cam was originally a player before a dev. Stormbringer as well. Kyle as well. There's also a couple other devs I'm pretty sure as well. So they've played the game. They've definitely played the game. And that's kind of just weird, just talking bad about them all the time. So there's that. But hopefully I got my whole point across. I know this might be a long video, but I did want to just sit down and talk about the pros, the cons, and then I guess the videos that people are like taking out of context, whatever. And basically what I do for the community as well. So hopefully this gives you better insight on who I am as a person and what I do and what my opinions are. If they ever do a roundtable again, maybe I might join, but just based upon how this was, I don't know. I kind of want just like, I'm the type of person just focus on my own content, and if I do have my opinion, I will say it. But I like just doing my own things, right? If I have a problem or issue, I'll message a dev, but I'd rather just focus on me and my content as a whole and my whole channel as a whole. That's why you don't see me really doing content collabs or anything like that. I'd rather just do everything myself with the group of friends I know that are in my community, right? There's plenty of you guys that are in my Discord that always don't mind being in videos, or like will help me with you know, recording a video or something like that. I appreciate all you guys in my Discord, of course, or whether just you stopping by my stream. Definitely it helps out a crap ton when it comes to videos, and it does mean a lot. So thank you to all the people that have been sticking by my side, and appreciate everything I do, and also agree with my POV on some of these things. So I try to be as much formal as I can in this video. I even spent time gathering all these points to make this video and to prove that, like, hey, it wasn't just because I was yapping. Like, there's actually some good takes and bad takes, but there were a lot of bad takes that overlooked the good takes as well. And it kind of strayed away from the topic, which was casual players, right? It really strayed away from that topic when I was watching this, and it was kind of just frustrating because, you know, it strayed away from the topic, right? So there's that. But hopefully you guys enjoyed. Be sure to leave a like, subscribe, all that type of stuff, and be on the lookout for more videos. I know I had to delay a lot of videos because of this video, but you might see some videos kind of late, and I apologize for that. So there's that. But join Discord down below if you guys haven't. If you guys want to interact with me, I'm usually chilling in general chat. So if you guys see me, you're more than welcome to join, right? Just, you know, also stop by this channel at any point in time. I wouldn't mind seeing you guys in my chat, and let me know you guys' thoughts and opinions, of course, as a video as a whole. Am I wrong on any of these things? Do you guys have your own takes? Do you agree with me, disagree with me? Let me know in the comments down below. But that is it, and I will talk to you guys in the next one. Peace out, guys.